everybody. It's Stephanie Glaros, founder and executive director of Humans of Minneapolis. I'm talking really loud now because there's a truck right here that's very loud. I'm here at the Central Library, and I'm about to do what was going to be a live stream recording of my sort of thoughts as I walk around downtown and engage with people and interview them for the project. So I want to talk about why I got started, how it's evolved, and our vision as a nonprofit for now and into the future. So decided to start here at the library because this is a place where, when I lived over here, 9 times out of 10, this is where I would start my route. So I would sort of start and end here because it was close to my house, but also because I always knew there was going to be interesting people to talk to here at the library, and I just feel a real connection to this place. So I thought we'd start here and kind of go from there. So we'll see how people respond to me kind of walking around talking to myself. But I wanted to just give to the Max Day today, also the 1-year anniversary of the launch of Humans of Minneapolis as a nonprofit. So I kind of wanted to do something a little different. It's something that I've thought about doing many times. What would it be like to kind of strap a camera on me and walk around and sort of observe and do what I do, which to me is sort of a mindfulness practice, actually. So here we are at the library, obviously one of the most beautiful buildings that we have down here. Normally outside the library you would see a lot more people, but obviously it's a bit cold today. I might be popping in and out of the Skyway to warm up, as people tend to do downtown, but this is the time of year that people migrate from the street into the Skyway. So something that
they can just be saying that.
I guess I wanted to just start by talking about why I started doing this in the first place. So I lived over here in the warehouse district downtown, and I used to work down on 12th and Hennepin, and I always had my camera with me. I've always been a photographer. I've always taken photos. So I would have my camera with me, and I always passed the homeless shelter and the Greyhound bus station over on the edge of downtown. And I would take the same route every single day at the same time. And I started to notice that I was seeing a lot of the same people every day, but we would never interact with each other. And that started to feel uncomfortable to me. I didn't really understand why two people who literally run into each other on a daily basis would choose to ignore each other. And I started to realize that that act of ignoring is a choice. It's something you don't have to do, but it's something we choose to do quite a bit. So I decided to start using my camera as an excuse to interact with the people I was seeing every day. So I would ask people if I could take their photo. And I would go home and I would print the photo and then carry them around with me in the hopes that I would see that person again so I could give them the photos. And people really liked the photos, so that sort of gave me that positive feedback I needed to keep doing something that was actually quite intimidating and frightening to me at the time. So I kind of kept doing that. I called it Minneapolis Strangers at the time, and then discovered Humans of New York and really fell in love with what he was doing, and saw that there were these Humans of pages popping up all over the world. So I relaunched the project as Humans of Minneapolis. So that was 2013. I started taking photographs in 2010, actually. And just over time it evolved. I got a lot better at it. I practiced. I learned, like most people, by making mistakes and doing things in a way that didn't work, so I could correct myself and do it in a way that did work. So I've kind of developed a process which I can kind of describe. So as you see, I'm walking a little faster than I would normally walk because it's cold, but I come down here, mostly stick with Hennepin and Nicollet Avenues down here because they're simply the place where there's the most people. And despite what I think the perception is of this kind of work, the way I choose people is actually not random. I sort of cherry pick people. I can talk about why I would choose to approach someone versus not approach someone, but I need to be sort of in an area where there's a lot of people to choose from. So I've just learned it doesn't really pay to do this work in an area where there's just not that many people. So I come down here and I watch people. It's a process of observation. I'm looking for someone who, at least at that moment in time, is willing to talk with me and share their story. Now that's not going to be every person all the time. Some people aren't going to ever want to do that and aren't going to be interested no matter what. But if I can find someone who's sort of not in a hurry, is my first criteria. Someone who's sort of relaxed. I'm looking for people who are open. And openness is something that requires paying a lot of attention to body language and facial expression. If somebody is walking very quickly, I know that they're in a hurry and they're not going to have a time to talk to me right at that moment. And that's totally fine. I can find someone else. If I see someone who's maybe kind of agitated, doesn't seem like they're having really a very good day, I'm also going to let that person go. As much as I might want to photograph them, and it always initially starts with envisioning the photograph. I see the person first, and I see the environment they're in. I see the background that's around them, and I envision that photograph. But then I need to pay attention. I need to pay attention to them and where they're at right now and what they might be going through right now at this moment. And over time, what that's really done is increase my ability to kind of read people, to read their moods, to read their facial expressions. So it's developed my emotional intelligence, which was sort of a surprise, not something I realized was going to happen by doing this work. But when I go back, when I said earlier that I consider it a mindfulness practice, what I mean is that when I'm looking for people to interview, it's an opportunity for me to get out of my head and pay attention to what's going on with other people. So it's like a moving meditation. So I'm always on the move, I'm always walking, but I'm not letting myself get caught up in the chatter in my head. I'm focused on other people. And it's something that I try to incorporate, really on a daily basis, is just paying more attention to what's going on with other people. So that's sort of how I find people, and then it's a matter of, now with the nonprofit, I mean, back, and I'll talk about how we evolved, but, it used to be that I would sort of ask a lot of different questions that would sort of lead to the kinds of stories that I'm interested in, which happen to be stories that help explain why a person is the way they are. It's about those things that happen to you in life that shape you as a person, help explain why you have the perspective you have, and just why you are the person you are. Because really what we're practicing here is empathy. It's just trying to understand people better by knowing their story and knowing a little bit about where they come from and what they've been through, that's all of us, every single one of us. So essentially that's kind of what we're looking for. So, over the years, we gained more social media followers. In 2016, I published a book. So it was sort of the best stories, best photographs from the project. Now we can see the downtown workers who don't want to wear their coats speeding across the street to get back inside. So when the book came out, a lot of people asked me almost immediately what was next, and a lot of times the question was, well, when's your next book coming out? And that expectation sort of led me to rethink the whole project and really think about, what do I want to do with it? I have this platform. Where do I want to go with this? I'm an artist, and so I'm really not interested in doing the same things again and again. I like to challenge myself. So the idea of the nonprofit grew out of a few different things. One is my desire to use my platform to do good, to make the world a better place, but also wanting to expand what we do, because I've always had kind of ideas in my head about, I could do this, I could do that. Well, really on my own, it would be too much. So, and just the fact that I'm driven by purpose and a mission more than I'm driven by making money and profit. So I decided that a nonprofit structure would make sense for us. So last year we applied for the paperwork, got our 501c3 status. I was able to assemble and recruit an incredible board of directors who I invite you to go to our website and see who we've got on board. They're a unbelievably awesome group of people. humansofminneapolis.org. So the idea now is to, like I say, take what we've started, take this platform, and do something more with it. Take it to kind of the next level. So our mission is to use storytelling to connect hearts and minds in order to encourage empathy and build community. Lots of friendly folks out here. And normally if I'm just walking by myself, I'm engaging more with people, but right now I'm engaging with you. So it's all about, the purpose of the nonprofit is using storytelling just to help people understand each other better. So that includes our community engagement, what we've always done. So the on-the-street interviews, impromptu with strangers. We're always we'll continue to do that. That's kind of our bread and butter. But we want to expand what we're doing in new and different ways. So I'll be posting a couple posts today on Facebook about some of the new projects that we worked on in this past year. But one was a series of panel discussions where I invited people from who I've interviewed in the past to speak about what it's like to be them. So we did being black, we did being veteran, being LGBTQ, and being Somali. But you can go to our Facebook page to learn more about that. But really, ultimately, the goal with the nonprofit is to, through that ability to help people understand each other better, we want to create a community not only here in Minneapolis but beyond, that's more open-minded, that's more kind, and that's more inclusive, so that more people feel comfortable here being whoever they are. Because ultimately that's really all we want, is to be able to just be accepted for who we are. So that's our goal as a nonprofit, is just to share stories in as many different ways as we can, and just help people connect with each other both online and in real life. And that's our goal. So I think what I'm going to do now is actually turn around. I'll go up to the intersection just to be not a jaywalker, and I'll walk back up to the library, and I'll kind of just talk more about, again, what do I see when I'm out here, what am I looking for, and most importantly, engaging with people, because it's, in the end, the most important thing that I do when I'm out here is listening to people and acknowledging people and interacting with people, making eye contact with people. So that's the part I enjoy the most. And again, the streets are a little empty due to the cold weather. This is not a day that I would go out and try to interview people. No one wants to talk to me when it's this cold, I promise you. I've tried many times, and getting people to stand out here in the cold is not easy, but we'll just get back up to the kind of the center of Nicollet here and see what we have to see. And then I'll maybe cut over to Hennepin. Hennepin has always been a huge part of my route, but the construction there right now makes it really bad for photographs, and it's also it's like there's just not that many people over there. People are kind of avoiding Hennepin, so right now coming downtown is, coming to Nicollet is kind of my best bet, but pretty quiet streets due to the weather. The Skyway is actually private property. I've been asked before if I do interviews up in the Skyway, and I don't, because security guards will, without permission, you'll get stopped by security. So, in general, we keep our interviews to public spaces for the most part, because, for legal reasons, you're allowed to photograph people if they're in public space. So parks, sidewalks, etc. That's mainly where you'll find us. Awesome gloves. Thank you. I love giving people compliments. I've become sort of addicted to it. I like how it kind of catches people off guard, but in a good way. You can tell it makes people feel good, so it's something I try to do as much as possible. If you like what somebody's wearing, or their hairstyle, or their glasses, their shoes, there's no reason why you shouldn't tell them so. No no buses on Hennepin now, so all the buses are rerouted to Nicollet here. So the buses are pretty much a constant. And when I'm interviewing people, not the greatest in terms of the audio. It can be it can really screw up your audio to have a bus pull up right next to you and start, you know, chirping and beeping and growling, whatever they do. A lot of like guys in suits downtown, and they're always in a hurry. I feel like I tend to not approach kind of business guys as much, just because they're always on their way to a meeting, or they're on their way to a dinner, or, you know, they're not rude to me or anything, but 9 times out of 10 they're going somewhere. They're doing something. One exception, though, that comes to mind is, actually, I approached him right up here. So several years ago, I was down here, and right up on this corner here, I'm coming up on the IDS Center, and I saw a guy coming out, very tall, very, you know, strapping looking guy in a suit, kind of power suit sort of guy, right over here. Actually, I'll go stand right where we met. So I decided to approach him, even though, like I say, I tend to not talk to guys in suits as much. And his name was Dave, and he told me he was dying of cancer, and he was on his way to meet his daughter for lunch. We were right over here. This is where I saw him. I saw him come right out of these doors, and I gotta say, it was a shock to me to hear that. It was the last thing on earth I ever would have thought me and this guy were going to talk about. So since then, you know, so I shared his story, and it was the kind of story that really drove the point home to me that you just don't know what's going on with a person based on what you can see on the outside. Looks can be very deceiving, and we go to great lengths to disguise the things that we're going through. And so that's that empathy piece. So I try to kind of cut people slack, because I've just been surprised so many times by, you know, I approach somebody and I have my assumptions, I, you know, bring my own biases, and 9 times out of 10, what they say to me is a surprise. So, and Dave was really one of them. So, unfortunately, he's since passed away. Luckily for me, I've been in touch with his daughter, Natalie, who came to, she's been a great supporter. She spoke at our launch party a year ago, and you know, now I feel a connection to her and her family. So, you know, you really never know, and I find oftentimes that when I interview someone, the connection we make frequently goes well beyond just that interview. There's a lot of people who I've approached for an interview who've ended up being people who I have a personal relationship with, which is, again, kind of, I would say, one of the unexpected benefits of doing this work, are just literally the friendships that I've developed with people who otherwise I never would have. So that's been something that's been very, very cool about this. So I think, you know, sort of to conclude here, you know, I hope I've at least given a little insight into, you know, what we do, why we do it. And like I say, we are doing this for Give to the Max Day. So if you support what we do, if you think that storytelling is a powerful way to build bridges of understanding, that's really what we're all about. And we really plan to continue to find new ways to make those kinds of connections and help people to be more empathetic, not only towards each other, but towards ourselves. And one of the things that we're really excited about is we're about to start recording a podcast, which we'll be launching in 2020. So we're about to start our first season, just recording. So we'll be releasing the video on our YouTube page, and then the audio on Spotify, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts. So we're really excited about that. Planning more events for 2020, ways for people to connect in real life, in person, which is always really fun and really exciting, especially when people connect sort of across differences, which tends to be what happens at our events. So if you feel so moved, please do donate to our Give to the Max donation page today. That would be awesome. Other ways you can support: you can sign up for our newsletter, go to our website, humansofminneapolis.org, and signing up for our newsletter is really the best way to make sure that you're on top of what we're doing. A lot of stuff gets missed on Facebook, so the newsletter is sort of the way to find out first when we're having events, when we're doing different projects and different programming that encourages empathy and builds community. So again, humansofminneapolis.org. So I will be posting this video when I get back home, and really appreciate anyone who's watching. Have a great day and stay warm.